go to school?
I went to Parsons School of Design in New York.
And I went to school with some people who got out still not knowing what they wanted to do, and then they found it, a few years later. I also went to school with people who really knew what they wanted to do right from day one, and a lot of them did end up doing it, but I don't think they got as much out of their education because they were so focused.
Do you have any advice for any of our young aspiring comic book artists?
Yeah, advice for young aspiring comic artists. Well, so first of all, I think it's actually important not to get too focused on comics too early. I think it's good to have a kind of a general art education where you really focus on your drawing and your painting and your compositional skills and maybe your storytelling skills.
So I think my work improved hugely during art school, but also one of the interesting things I think about art school is that people improve a lot right after art school. So there were a lot of people that including myself, but also other people that I went to school with who, got a lot better in school, but then when I saw their work like 3 or 4 years later, it was like, wow.
Comics is a wonderful art form. It's also a huge amount of work. And so you might find that your work is just as well suited to something that maybe is easier, like storyboards or or picture books, or I'm not going to say animation is easier, but animation with the right team is potentially easier.
This is just a couple examples of what's different when I translate from a text-only classic into the comics medium. So this is at the end of the Odyssey. There's a scene where Odysseus is in disguise, but he's recognized by his nurse because she remembers when he got this scar. And in the original, there's this very long digression with lots of detail. And it's actually a really cool scene, and I drew it. But then I realized that sort of took you completely out of the atmosphere of this very tense moment. And so one of the things that comics can do very well is to suggest a lot of information like that in a single image.
You might find that maybe your work is, you want to be a muralist or a stained glass painter or a sculptor. There's all these things that, when you go to art school, or if you don't go to art school, but before you've gone to art school, you have no idea there's so many possible jobs for artists out there. It's kind of mind-blowing how many potential things there are.
Taking everything that they had learned and then going out and being in the real world and having to work harder and having just having some time to let that all kind of settle down and become more personal to them, suddenly their work really advanced. And I think that same thing is what happened in between Bearskin and Beowulf. Bearskin sort of represents what I had learned in college, and then Beowulf is kind of like how all of that kind of set. This book, Making Comics, is very like nuts and bolts, like a lot of useful tips for actually making comics. But Understanding Comics is almost more like a philosophy book, and it really describes a lot of interesting stuff about the medium and about how to read comics and what's unique about comics.